Today, I'm in Meanwood, a suburb of northwest Leeds, which was once a village dating back to the 12th century. The Meanwood were the woods to the east of this Meanwood Beck, which flows through the 72 acres that is Meanwood Park. In 1847, they were renamed Meanwood Woods, and the area got its name it has today. Now, Meanwood Beck starts in Adel and flows through here to the River Aire. Let's pick it up a little bit further along its journey. Water from the beck used to provide power for corn mills and later for tanneries like this one here. This rusticated sandstone building is Sugarwell Court, a halls of residence for Leeds Beckett University, providing accommodation for almost 400 students. It used to be called Sugarwell Works, and before that Cliff Tannery. It was built in 1866 and it is one of the best surviving examples of a tannery from the mid-19th century. Edward Kitchen, who ran this factory, was a great guy. He built 63 houses for his workforce before they moved in. None of the houses survive, but this building has had a new lease of life. Meanwood Road and the Beck cut straight through the Meanwood Valley, which has been a site of industry in the area for hundreds of years. It was also the site of a major battle in the English Civil War, where the waters of the Beck were said to have run red with the blood of the fallen, giving the name Steinbeck to some of the streets nearby. One of the most interesting and recognisable buildings in the area is this one. It was built as a church, even though it says school outside, but the truth was it served as both when it opened in 1882. Such was the optimism of the Baptist community that they bought an adjacent piece of land intending to build their church there, and they called this building the school. But the church never got built, and the spare land had to get sold off to reduce the debts taken on to build this distinctive classical building. It served as a church and a school for about 140 pupils before being turned into offices and then into a yoga centre, which it is today. Meanwood Hall behind me is one of the treasures of the area and is currently run down and looks to be falling more into ruins. Parts of this mansion date back to 1762. But in 1921, Leeds City Council bought this building. Do you know why? Don't go anywhere, I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. So just what was Meanwood Hall used for? Thomas Denison built this house in 20 acres of land, but died just 34 years later, leaving it to his wife and then to his son. Various tenants then lived here, including a banker, Sir John Beckett, whose son Christopher, also a banker, bought the house in 1824, and it passed down through his family to his grandson, Sir Hickman Beckett Bacon, who sold the estate to the council. By then it was a whopping 178 acres, and it was to provide what they called a colony for those with learning disabilities. To start with, 87 patients lived here in the hall. But over the next 20 years, many buildings were put up around here, and at its peak, 900 stayed here. It was a notorious place with lots of horror stories around it. Frank Totty, the hospital's first resident, was admitted when he was just 10 years old and stayed here until he died 60 years later. The hospital employed someone to go out on the streets of Leeds looking for patients, and once admitted, they were only allowed one visit a month. The hospital closed in 1997, with much of the land around here being turned over to housing. There's one more Meanwood landmark, which lies hidden from view in the middle of this estate of intra-war semi-detached houses. This is Meanwood Towers. Designed by Edward Welby Pugin, son of the more famous father who designed Big Ben among many other Victorian Gothic buildings, this was a private house built in 1866. The owner, Thomas Kennedy, who ran a foundry in Leeds, was the son of a very successful businessman. With his wife Clara, whom he married in Canterbury Cathedral, they were able to indulge their loves of romantic architecture and music. They commissioned Pugin, who was best known for his Gothic churches, to build this huge and elaborate house for them in what was then a country setting, complete with gables, gargoyles and soaring chimneys, which sadly had to be cut short in the 1960s for health and safety reasons. Thomas and Clara were both musical, and Clara played the organ. Now, not one to do things by halves, Thomas, when he was just 25 years old, commissioned a full-scale pipe organ for Clara, and then built an organ house in the style of an alpine lodge, complete with stained glass windows and seating for 800 people. To put that into context, that's about the size of Leeds Town Hall. Sadly, nothing remains of the organ house today. Now, it took 3 years for the organ to be built, and it arrived in something like 20 lorry loads of parts, and then took the German manufacturers several more months to install and commission it. With its 3,600 pipes, it must have cost an absolute fortune. Just imagine how big this organ house must have been to accommodate this massive instrument. Today, Meanwood is a thriving suburb of Leeds. It has housing, parks, an urban farm, shops and supermarkets. But it also has a rich heritage which is preserved through a small number of outstanding buildings in the area. This is Jonathan Straight for the Lowdown Leeds.